2, 1. Bro, what you talking about, man? Come on, tighten up. Tighten up, dog. Get up. Get up. Tighten up. Tighten up. Come on, get up, bro. Boom. Hit with a lot. Right in the forehead. Hit in the head with a lot. Something that happens on a day-to-day occurrence, not just in prisons throughout the nation, but especially in the state of Florida. And not just at any prison, but at JIT camps, gladiator school. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure probably the majority of you do. JIT is a Florida term. It's kind of become universal and used throughout the nation now. And pretty much everybody already knows the meaning. But if you don't, JIT means like youngin', or just somebody who's young. Well, in the state of Florida, they have what's called youthful offender. They call them, in short, YOs. So whenever you get sentenced to prison as an adult, and you don't even have to be an adult. You can be, 14, 15, 16. I think the youngest I've seen was maybe 13, 13-year-old being tried as an adult. And they will send you to adult prison. But the Florida Department of Corrections, the state, they made a safety net to protect young men, or even like young guys, young boys, young teenagers who are being tried as adults and being sent to prison. Adult prison, especially whenever you're tried as an adult, you normally have like a serious case, like a murder one, or you catching a lot of time, life sentence, 40 years, 30 years, or whatever it is. So a lot of these young jits who are catching juvenile life, whenever they would send them to prison, I think back in the 80s or maybe the 70s or 90s or whatever. I don't know when they started the whole youthful offender thing. Maybe it was the 90s, I think, or the 80s when they started it. But a lot of these jits, they would go up the road, they would send them to adult prison, and they would come across these booty bandits. And these are young kids. These are teenagers, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, or even some of the guys in their young 20s, they were just too small or frail or scared or whatever, and they were becoming prey for the predators, for the booty bandits in the chain gang. So the Florida Department of Corrections, they made a divide within the adult prison system that either if you were 25 and under, and even if you were tried as an adult, you would still go to adult prison, but you would go to JIT camp. You would go to a YO, a youthful offender institution, and that means that it's 25 and under. But if you're 25 and older, then you would go to the adult side, unless you were 18 years or older and you were sentenced to more than 25 years. Then you would get sent to an adult prison with other adults and be separate from the youthful offenders just because of your age and the amount of time that you had. So once again, man, listen, it's your boy E.I. the King, and this is the Incarceration Podcast. Y'all do me a favor, y'all go ahead and like this live, man. It helps the algorithm. I greatly appreciate it. Just real briefly and short, I did over 12 years in the state of Florida in the prison system, and that's not even including and counting all the juvenile programs, juvenile detention, juvenile facilities. But then after that, as an adult, going to prison the first time when I was 18. By the time I was 23, I was already in prison my third time. From the age of 18 to 31, I was only in society for 14 months. Right now, I'm 34. This is the longest I've been out, and I've been out going on 3 years. And this right now is the longest I've been out since I was 16 years old. So of course, man, I got a whole bunch of crazy war stories, funny, goofy, weird things you can never even comprehend or imagine that I've seen, experienced, as well as the other people that I interviewed that they've experienced or they've seen as we interview them, and we get those stories on this channel. So once again, I am E.I. the King, and this is the Incarceration Podcast. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do so, because there's nothing but fire prison content. And most importantly, man, this channel, we like to really lean in and hone in on the redemptive stories. You know what I mean? The convicts coming home and turning away from their past lifestyle of crime, succeeding, rising above their past, becoming successful entrepreneurs, law-abiding citizens, fathers, mothers, whatever, and most importantly, just walking in the purpose that God has for them. Because if you don't know my story, while I was incarcerated throughout those 12 years in prison, I authentically encountered Jesus, and the Lord radically transformed my life. So therefore, man, that's why we champion the motto, Forever Convict, because even though society may deem us as felons, as convicts, or second-class citizens, or scum of the earth, or whatever, I wouldn't take back any of it, not 1 minute, 1 second, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 year, 1 decade. Why? Because God used all that to completely transform my life and make me who I am today. So let's get back to it, man. Oh yeah, by the way, we're on the journey journey to 50,000 subs, man. 50,000 subs. Right now, we're at 20K. So if you guys have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Share this channel with anybody who enjoys prison content. Channel's fire, some crazy interviews, some crazy stories, things that I've seen or experienced all throughout over 12 years in the chain gang in the Florida Department of Corrections. So let's get back to it, man. YO camps, youthful offender prisons, also known as JIT camp, gladiator school. All right, so listen, whenever you get sentenced to prison, or if you're not familiar with prison, you're not familiar with the prison system at all, you would think that this put you in the scenario. That's the best way to do it. This put you, the viewer, in the scenario. You're 18 years old. I don't care what your past is, if you come from a past immersed in poverty and you've been exposed and you've seen a lot, or even if you're in the streets at a young age, selling drugs, robbing like myself or other people who've done prison time. But just act like you've never been arrested and you've never been to any juvenile facility, juvenile detention, or juvenile program. And somehow you catch a case and you're getting sent to adult prison at the age of 18. Now, you would think that going in, if you heard of, all right, they have adult prison with like the adults, but then they have a section of these adult prisons which are known as YO camps, JIT camps, youthful offender, 25 and under. You would think that probably, if we're being honest, you would probably be nervous. You would probably be fearful of what you're about to face going into the age of 18. So you would think that most people, if they can make a choice, they would go, oh, I would either want to go to the adults, or I'd want to go to JIT camp, the youthful offender prison. You would think that pretty much everybody says, all right, I want to go to JIT camp. I want to go to the youthful offender prison. Not at all. And that's for the people who don't know about the reputation. But obviously, if you go to jail, if you're facing prison time, the reputation of JIT camps, super exceeds itself to the 10th degree because it's known for being nothing but absolute chaos. Gladiator school. You would think otherwise. You would think that like maybe the adult prisons would be worse. And I'm gonna go ahead and give some brief clarity. It is to a degree. I've always like explained it this way, that like at JIT camp, they're stabbing you to scare you, to get you off the compound or to prove a point. They're doing it for bragging rights. They're not really trying to kill you when they stab you at JIT camp. They'll wet people up, but it'll be like with a little fence poker. But like adult prisons, like whenever people get wet up, they're doing it with big old stupid swords and, like shanks from the windows or from the bunks that are like this long, and they're trying to kill you and cut your face off. So that's the difference I always say, kind of like in short, briefly to explain it. That the adult prisons, the adults, it's a lot more serious. At the JIT camps, even though it's more violent in the sense to where there's more fighting, there's more gang violence, there's more extortion, there's more whole bunch of crazy warfare, gangland. Then they call it gladiator school for a reason. There's more chaos going on at JIT camp, but at adult prisons, a little bit more laid back. But when it does go down, it goes down for real, and people are dying. So that's like the difference. So anyways, man, let's get back to JIT camp. So I would say the first thing about JIT camp is that the culture is entirely different when it comes to administration, like the police and the incarcerated population, the inmates, the convicts. And that being like the police run everything. I'm talking about absolutely everything. And most adult prisons, from my knowledge and from my experience, like throughout the nation, like the inmates for the most part kind of run the prisons. The administration, either they'll allow it, by knowing that the inmate population keeps everything going when it comes to food service, when it comes to laundry, but even when it comes to like the safety and well-being of everybody, because of the politics and gangs and different sets and things like that. But sometimes, like the administration really can't even get a hold of the prison population because it can be so violent, it can be so crazy. So they kind of just stay out the way. They really only walk the tiers whenever they need to, if they're doing shakedowns, and they're coming deep. They're coming 20, 15 deep, or if they're doing inspections or things like that. Now, every state's different. So I really can't speak for the nuances of how it is universally throughout the entirety of the nation, because I say all the time, every prison's different, every state's different, and every person's personal experience in prison is different. It's all dependent upon a whole bunch of different variables. But getting back to it, at JIT camp, at youthful offender prison, at Gladiator School, the police run it completely. And not only do they run the institutions, but they terrorize the JITs. And what I mean by that, like your first day at JIT camp, bro, officers are slapping everybody. Not everybody literally, but the police are making an example of several inmates, of youthful offenders, JITs, by slapping them, ripping their stuff up, throwing their property everywhere, choke slamming them. And it's just the culture that the administration has for the majority of pretty much all the JIT camps I've been to, is that the administration, the officers are letting the JITs know that they run it. And they definitely do, because as a JIT, you have to PT, which is known as personal training. And man, they be PTing the hell out of the JITs, making everybody do jumping. And the PT is normally sweet. It's normally easy. But if like the dorm's not marching and sounding off and being loud, they'll make everybody PT. They won't give you canteen. They won't give you rec. And they're just enforcing every rule to the 10th degree. You got to always be Class A. That means having your uniform on, your shirt tucked in, your bunk in your room, everything's got to be clean. And it's just they're enforcing every rule to the maximum. So I would say that's probably one of the first like culture shocks of JIT camp, is that the police run everything. And not only are they like yelling in your face, they don't give you no respect, they're cussing you out, they're putting their hands on inmates left and right, slapping the JITs, choke slamming them. But also too, it's very common that officers would fight the JITs, because these officers are like grown men. They're like in their 40s, 50s, some of them young and like in their 30s and 20s, and some of them can't even be like 18, 19. But for the most part, they're like middle-aged, men or women. And a lot of these guys, man, they enjoy fighting the officers. And they'll fight, the JITs. They'll go in a cell with them, and they'll take off their belt. And some of the officers even gangbang. So it's kind of crazy that normally that's another big shock factor, as well as the JIT camps, is the administration, from my experience, is normally a lot more crooked. And you got corrupt staff and administration, not just in the prison system in totality, but that's a part of any organization. Not everybody's going to fly right. You always got people with ulterior motives and intentions. Yeah, getting back to it, bro. Anyways, listen, man, my name is E.I. the King. This is the Incarceration Podcast, where I talk about prison, pre, post, and present, and how everything that I experienced throughout my incarceration has forever changed my life. This is the Incarceration. Forever Convict family, listen, we are on the journey to 50,000 subs. Right now, we're at 20K. Y'all do me a favor, go ahead and like this video. Drop something in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and be answering them soon. And also, too, bro, listen, our live has fell off, y'all. I'm sad to say our live has fell off. Right now, we're only at 11 viewers. And we used to be at like 350, 400. And that's my fault. My apologies. Because I've been on the road for the past couple weeks. I haven't been going live regularly. So I need y'all's favor. You, the viewer right now, you who are watching, do me a favor and go ahead and like this video. And if you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so. If you don't know about my story, my name is E.I. the King. I've done over 12 years in prison. And on this channel, you're going to hear nothing but crazy, funny, goofy, weird stories that you would never even comprehend or think of, that I've seen or experienced personally in the chain gang, in prison, as well as the other people who I interviewed, the stories that they share as well. But we would specifically hone in and we focus in on the underdog stories, the convicts coming home and just turning from their past lifestyle of crime, overcoming it, becoming successful fathers, mothers, business owners, entrepreneurs, and ultimately walking in the purpose in which God has for them. Because if you don't know, while I was incarcerated, man, I authentically encountered Jesus and the Lord radically and has forever changed and transform my life. All right, so let's get back to it, man. We're just talking about the administration, and that being one of the differences at JIT camp from adult prisons. That the administration at JIT camp, man, they run it. I'm talking about completely, and they're violent and they're extremely disrespectful. Now, just go ahead and just turn gears and just shift and just focus on the incarcerated population. Let's focus on how the living standards and the culture is at JIT camp in totality amongst the inmates. As I already said at the beginning, absolutely freaking insane. I got hit with a lot my very first day at JIT camp. I got in a fight within my first 45 minutes, and that same individual, as I was fighting, I kept dropping them, and I was up talking trash, selling everybody out, whoever's there, whoever else wanted to fight. I wasn't paying attention. His homie handed him a lock in the sock and hit me with a lock in the sock. And we both ended up going to confinement. So that's just a sneak peek of my first day in prison. My very first day in prison, I got hit with a lock in the sock. And I remember too, because when I was in the county jail, I always heard these war stories about JIT camp and how it was crazy. And I always swore, like, dog, I ain't going to JIT camp, bro. Like, I was sentenced as an adult. I didn't take a youthful offender sentence. I didn't sign up for a youthful offender just because, like, I couldn't, like, I already got sentenced to like my very bare minimum of my points, so I couldn't even, youthful offender wasn't an option for me. So whatever, I swore I wasn't going to youthful offender like JIT camp. And I honestly didn't want to go because I already heard the crazy war stories behind it. But what do you know, my first day in prison, it doesn't matter if I wasn't sentenced to JIT camp or not. They give me a red hat. That means that you're a JIT at the reception center. And it wasn't only till like my first 45 minutes in the dorm, I got in a fight and I got hit with a lock. But the reason why I say that is because the culture at JIT camp is absolutely crazy. Fights all day, every day. Gang banging all time high. Gang wars every single day, every single week. Crazy. Lockdown all the time. People getting latched, which is also like means being jumped all day, every day. I done seen, like, no exaggeration, I've seen like 25 people run in one cell to jump one guy. And they were in there for like 10 minutes, stomping this guy out, beating the brakes off this guy. I done seen people get hit with locks multiple times throughout the week, leaking, blood everywhere, stabbings all the time, extortion at an all-time high. I'm talking about some kids who are scared and don't know how to protect themselves, who haven't eaten real food for weeks, and they call it the vegetable diet because they are literally only surviving off of vegetables. Every time they go to the chow hall, they got somebody who's putting down on them. They take their tray, they take the bread, they take the meat, they take the dessert, and they just give them back whatever they don't want, whether it be vegetables or noodles. And these guys are just getting starved to death from being extorted. I'm talking about robberies, from people coming back to the canteen window with a whole bunch of food. The moment they get in the dorm, get hit with a lock, or the locker gets broken into, they get stolen, or a group of guys standing right outside in front of the canteen window and they're posted up on the side of it. And the moment people walk away from the window, you just see something like this, clean cock 'em. Boom! Listen, the stories and the experiences that I've seen at JIT camp is absolutely insane. And I'm sure if you've already been watching prison content, and you definitely know about 1090 Jake, and he was definitely always sharing the crazy war stories about JIT camp, especially in the state of Florida, and which is also known, at least your first day in, as the TOH. Or even if you go to another institution, even if you've already been down, normally whenever you go to a new spot, they got to TOH you. That means test the heart, see where you're at. And man, there's nothing but chaos and violence. And listen, I remember being in medical one day. I think it was maybe my first week at this JIT camp. And where I went to my first bid, my first prison was at obviously JIT camp, youthful offender prison, but it was Indian River, also known as the River. And where I was 18 and under. And listen, if you want to go ahead and go to my playlist, I have a playlist called The Incarceration. And it's a whole like HBO series, play by play of my first day, my first weeks, and my first months in prison, my very first time. Super fire, super dope, so go ahead and check it out. But hold on, I'm going to get right back to it. Hey, listen, man, it's your boy E.I. the King, and this is the Incarceration Podcast. I myself, I've done over 12 years in prison. So on this channel, you're going to hear nothing but funny, goofy, crazy, weird, things you can never even comprehend or imagine I've seen or experienced throughout all my years in prison. But not only that, while I also interview other people, we specifically hone in and we focus on the redemption stories of underdogs, convicts, men and women coming home, overcoming their past life lifestyle of crime, now being successful mothers, fathers, business owners, entrepreneurs, and most importantly, walking in the purpose in which God has for their lives. Because if you don't know my story, throughout all 12 years of my incarceration, I authentically encountered Jesus, and the Lord radically transformed my life. And now, actually, I go throughout the nation, going to different prisons and jails, not only sharing my story and how God transformed my life while I was incarcerated and how He's been blessing me upon my release, but we ultimately go in there to share the gospel of Christ Jesus, to make disciples, so that those men and women can discover and find their purpose through faith in Jesus, even in the midst of their bid, even in the midst of the incarceration. And I also am a rapper. This is my real career. I'm genuinely, like, authentically, for real, a rapper. My artist name is E.I. the King. So go ahead, listen to my music on wherever you listen to music at, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Amazon, wherever. My artist name is E.I. the King. The first album I wrote, it was while I was incarcerated. So a lot of my music is about prison, or I specifically write music to those who are incarcerated, to be encouragement, inspiration, and motivation to them. So y'all go ahead and check out my music on all platforms, E.I. the King, and also go to my other YouTube channel, my official artist channel, with all my music videos, E.I. the King on YouTube. And that is also where I have another podcast. It's called Let Me Talk Bro, and it's more about my life. It's more about ministry and everything, more personal. So anyways, let's get back to it, man. Oh yeah, by the way, y'all do me a favor, go ahead and like this video, man, because our live used to be jumping, dog. We used to have 350, 400 people on the live at one time. Our lives was going up to like 32K, I think, is the highest live we got. And once again, that's my apologies, just because I've been on the road for a couple of weeks. I haven't been going live every day, but I'm going to try to get back in the groove of going live. So praying that God bless us and we get, bump back up in the algorithm, man. So just get back to it, bro. What was I saying? I was talking about the Chaos War Stories. Let me go ahead and start reading some of these comments. Will Prescott, what's good, fam? Who Janice was a summer camp joke made in the JIT camp. Yo, that's crazy. Hugh Janice, how do you know about the summer camp joke? You gotta be like a faithful viewer. And if you are, Forever Convict family, I appreciate you, Hugh Janice. Because how do you know about that summer camp joke? And yes, that summer camp joke was made at JIT camp. Me and my dog, Sean Burt, we used to just laugh and clown and be dumb and immature. And we used to joke about, we used to yell in the cells outside the door when we'd be on lockdown. Be like, this is the worst summer camp ever. I didn't sign up for this. I haven't seen a water slide yet. So it's corny, it's goofy, it's immature, but you got to realize this is like in the middle of gangland. Someone just got stabbed 20 minutes ago, or jumped. So like there's nothing but tension in the air at all times, and it's not a friendly environment. So doing little dumb, immature, goofy stuff like that used to be not only humorous to us, but we used to also see like other guys, they'd laugh at dumb, stupid stuff like that too, because that wasn't a common, experience that you would have at JIT camp, but people laughing and clowning. Maybe, of course, sometimes, but I mean, the tension was high because of violence. Anonymous person, shout out. It said ulterior, not ulterior. Not sure what you mean. Ponzi said, I need beans and bologna. Sound like you a convict, dog. You already know about them bologna sandwiches and them beans. Oh, you already know oh, that's a tray right there, man. Them beans and bologna, man. That's just a classic chain gang, nasty tray, dog. They bean you to death in the chain gang. Thomas Turner, what's going on, man? Appreciate the encouragement. Yes, I am free. I've been free for going on 3 years. Glory be to God, dog. Frost Phoenix, keep it up, bro. I appreciate the encouragement. You keep it up as well. Uno1 says, Jesus, hallelujah, man, the King of Kings. Tasha Robertson says, I'm handsome. Good evening. I appreciate the encouragement. Azrael Tuscara says, my bad if I slayed your last name, dog. Second chance is a golden ticket in this world, and that's a fact. Tasha Robertson says you subscribed. I appreciate that, fam. All right, where were we at in the story, dog? I forget. Oh, I think we were talking about the violence and the crazy stuff in the prison. Oh, yeah. My first week in prison at JIT camp, and I'm in medical. Whenever you first go to prison, you got to go all these different call-outs. You got to see a psych doctor. You got to go to education. You got to take your tape test. You got to go to medical and get your physical and then check where you're at with your health and everything like that. So while I was in medical, normally when you go to any of these call outs, If anybody who hasn't been to prison, man, there's a saying in the chain gang, and there's a million sayings, but one of the sayings is hurry up and wait. Why? Because the administration, the staff, whoever you are going to see does not care. They do not care about your schedule, about your time, or about anything that you got going on that day because they view it as you're in prison. I'm here to get paid and to work. I don't care anything about you or what you got going on. Just shut up and sit down. Hurry up and wait. So that's a saying amongst the convicts in the chain gang. Just a joke saying like, you gonna hurry up and wait no matter where you go. If you're waiting in the chow hall line, if you're going to a call out at medical or education, wherever, you just be prepared to wait. So people normally bring books with them, or they'll bring their MP3s back in the day when they're MP3 players, or their tablets nowadays, if they even let you take them out the dorm. Some institutions won't let you take them, and they will confiscate them. And you definitely don't want to get your radio, your tablet, or your MP3 player confiscated, because that is like his bro said, your golden ticket, but in the chain gang. So anyways, I'm in medical, waiting for hours, bro, waiting to see like this doctor so I can get my physical. And I remember just seeing this kid come in, and he was all beat up, you know what I mean? His eyes were blacked and, closed. And that's the norm at JIT camp. If you think there's like officers who are like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, do you want to talk to somebody? Hell no. Like, they don't care at all. Like, they're just gonna walk right past you. And even if the guys are in fear for their lives trying to check in, a lot of times the police will be like, man, for what? What are you trying to check in for? They just man, I'm telling you, at JIT camp, bro, there's no love whatsoever. 90% of the administration, bro, are like, no love, no sympathy at all. So this kid comes into medical, and his eyes are all swollen and busted up, and you could tell, man, he's just been getting his face pounded in. But that's not why he's coming to medical. At first, I didn't know that, because while he's walking in, I'm just being taken back by his whole face being caved in. But as he's sitting down, he's waiting, I see him messing with his hand. And he's messing with right here. And if you don't know that, especially in like Latino gangs, that's a common spot, but pretty much in all sets, but mostly I think Latino gangs, that's a spot to get, like gang tattoos right here on your hand or your palm, whatever, your hand right here. So I see him like holding it, and it's like bubbly a little bit. It's like oozy, and it's all nasty, and he's like blowing on it. So anyways, he's sitting there, he's holding his hand, and finally they took him back, and, he called a medical emergency, and they gauzed him up, and I'm sure put antibiotics or whatever ointment on his, his burn. What happened? What happened? If you don't know, I'm about to tell you. Bro just got X'd out. What does that mean? He's obviously gang affiliated, and for whatever reason, his gang chose to X him out. Whether it was he was bucking call outs, or he was messing with boys, or he did something that was breaking the code of ethics, the bylaws, or whatever they got going on, for whatever reason, his set, chose to X him out. That means you can't bang with us no more, bro. Like, you're folded, you know what I mean? You are not what we are anymore. Like, and they kicked him out, the cool club. Kicked them out. So what they normally do at JIT camp is they would hold them down and burn the tattoos off of them. Man, listen, throughout my years at JIT camp, I done seen a lot of guys go to medical with burn marks. I'm talking about face and all. And the rest of their brothers, in that set, they will literally hold them down, and they will put like socks or shirts like in their mouth, over their mouth, so they can't hear them screaming. It will literally burn all the gang tattoos off of them. Savage. 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 And once again, I already mentioned, man, if you are familiar with prison content, and if you watch 1090 Jake, man, shout out to 1090, and you hear the stories of the broomsticks, and the broomsticks, being forced, that's not a myth. It's not as common, I think, as some prison content creators try to make it seem, but definitely is a thing. Definitely happens. And once again, it was just like a scare tactic. To me, like, number one, like, thank God, like, number one, the Lord was transforming my life in prison. So I was never a part of that either, like, by any means, you know what I mean? But like, to me, I always thought that was super, like, that's weird. Like, even if you are like on that violent, crazy stuff. But anyways, the whole point I'm getting at is like, that's how like treacherous the JIT camp culture was. You know what I mean? Like morals completely out the window. Robbery, second stuff, like man, that stuff is crazy. Crazy, 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 crazy. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and read some of these comments, man. And once again, bro, our live used to be jumping. We used to be at 350, 340, 450 people. Now we're at 11. But anyways, I appreciate every viewer watching. If you don't know who I am, my name is E.I. the King. I've done over 12 years in prison, and this is the Incarceration Podcast. Right now, we're on the journey to 50,000 subs. Right now, we're at 20K. I appreciate all the love and support. If you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Share this channel with anybody who enjoys prison content. Like I said, I myself did over 12 years in prison. So on this channel, you're going to hear nothing but crazy, goofy, weird, funny, war stories, or just things you can never even comprehend or imagine that I seen or experienced myself throughout all 12 years in prison. But also as well, the people who we interview as they share their stories of what they seen and what they experienced also. But also too, we specifically hone in on the not the war stories. We hone in on the underdog stories, the redemption stories of men and women coming home, overcoming their past lifestyle of street life, and ultimately readjusting back into society as successful business owners, entrepreneurs, mothers, fathers, and most importantly, becoming and walking into everything that God has called and created them to be. Because if you don't know, while I was incarcerated, the Lord completely transformed my life. And now I'm blessed with the opportunity to travel the nation, going back into different prisons and jails, sharing not only how God transformed my life while I was incarcerated and how he's blessing my life since I've been released, but also ultimately going back in and proclaim the gospel and share that even despite a long bid or even in the midst of brokenness, in the middle of the incarceration, that God still has purpose for their lives. And we ultimately truly find that as we surrender our everything under Christ Jesus, man. And also too, man, I am a rapper. My artist name is E.I. the King. Like, I'm really a rapper. That's my career. So go ahead and check my music out on all streaming platforms, wherever you listen to music, on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Amazon, wherever you listen to music at. My first album I wrote while I was incarcerated. So a lot of my music is about prison, or I still intentionally write to those who are incarcerated to inspire, to give motivation, encouragement, and hope. So go ahead and check out my music on all platforms. And also as well, I do have another YouTube channel. It's my official artist channel with all my music videos, E.I. the King. And that is also where I have another podcast. Excuse me. And it's called Let Me Talk, Bro. So go ahead and check out that podcast as well. It's more about my life, my ministry, and just more personal. I'm going to go ahead and run through these comments real quick. So if y'all, by the way, y'all do me a favor, go ahead and like this video, man, so we can bless the algorithm, dog. Misty Porter, what's going on, fam? She says Mississippi needs to have second chance law. That's real. I'm not sure what second chance law is, but definitely, you know, death sentences and life sentences, man, I'm all for prison reform. Even though me personally, I don't know much anything about law. I'm slowly trying to get into the prison reform space and scene just so I can share my experiences, and ultimately the guys that I know, a lot of my big homies who have been sentenced to life, I know they're not the men they are now who they once were when they got sentenced. So most definitely people need a second chance for sure. Dodd Ali, the Snow Sage podcaster, said, I just subbed. I love Jesus. That's what's up, bro. Appreciate the support, man. I love Jesus too. As Real Tuskar says, this is going to be controversial. Is there any Muslims where you were incarcerated? How are they behaving in there? Sorry for my English. No, your English is fine, bro, and that's not controversial at all. Of course, bro, there was Muslims at every facility I was in. And just like any other person in life, you know, you got some Muslim, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, got some Muslims who are super devout and, you know, really living a lifestyle according to, you know, the Quran and things that they believe. But then you got other guys who are, you know, not really practicing any of their, you know, spiritual beliefs. But that's the same as far as, you know, Christianity or any other religion. You got some people who are genuine and some people who aren't. And I think that's his life. Ivan was good. Your message got retracted. CSHGWS was good, bro. He says original. Hugh Jana says, also, has there been a person who you thought couldn't fight but turned out to knock people out? Most definitely. I seen that all the time. And I used to, I mean, honestly, like, of course, as the Lord transformed my life, I'm not like pro violence, but I grew up fighting. So I kind of like to fight, and not really anymore as far as like the anger and the hatred behind it. But I like the sport of fighting. So I used to always enjoy seeing like some small, scrawny kids, who everybody kind of thought was soft by the outward appearance, but got the heart the size of Texas and will get in the grid with anybody. And not only get in the grid, but I'm talking about chunking them. And yeah, I seen a lot of people, man, who didn't look like they could fight. But that's one thing about the streets, though. Looks can be deceiving. Sometimes people look super tough or look super gangster, and they aren't at all. Or some guys that look crazy, they look like a bum, but man, they got the best hands on the pound. Dark Angel says, watching from Africa, Kenya, keep up. Yo, we got Kenya in the building. What's going on, Dark Angels, man? Welcome to the channel. I appreciate the support, man. Misty Porter says, my husband has a life sentence. He's in Parchman, Mississippi. His prison record is perfect. He's working there in HVAC, main maintenance. That's what's up. He got 11 years down. That's what's up, man. Misty Porter, man. Tell your husband I said what's up. Tell him I'm praying for him. Tell him to stay encouraged. And, man, like, I done seen personally God miraculously open up the prison gates on several occasions. Ain't no telling when God can do the same thing for your husband. So tell him to keep focused, to stay out the way. Most importantly, keep chasing after Jesus, and that he be reminded that even in the middle of the bid, even in the middle of the chaos, that God has purpose for him to be encouraged. Chris, what's going on, dog? Dolphin State of Mind. What's going on, bro? Glad to see you in the chat, man. Missy Porter says, thank you. I sure will. Appreciate that. A. Drew says, what a savage woman staying with her man all those years. That's real, man. Big shout out to you, Misty Porter, for holding your husband down. A. Man, that's true love right there, bro. I had a lot of homies, man, in prison who got life sentences, and their wives were there every weekend or every other weekend or once a month, and they got money on the phone. And, of course, it's difficult for everybody, but they were holding it down. All right, listen, y'all. I got to go to small group discipleship, man, Bible study. Love y'all, man. Once again, it's your boy E.I. the King. Y'all, please go ahead and like this video if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, listen to my music, E.I. the King, on all platforms. Shout out to y'all. Love y'all. Forever Convict family. Appreciate all the support, as always. Peace.